So thank you for coming down and allowing us to come in and do the observation today. I want to start with a couple positives that we saw going on. Every time we come in, we see you aggressively monitoring your kids and going around. I love that. I love that every time you aggressively monitor, you find a kid to come up and show call. That's just become a part of what you're doing, and that's terrific. We felt like the information that you referred to in the lesson today, we saw you really reinforcing that in the lesson you did the other day that we watched on the video. And so your kids are retaining that information. They're able to speak to it. So I thought that was great. As well as the kids did their exit ticket or the work that they were doing, most of them stayed with you except for Chase. He'd already moved on. But the rest of them were all at that question number 1, and you had given them plenty of time to really grapple with the question and how to solve for the sides. As we were watching, and as I looked through the lesson, it looked like you were doing lots of, you had really highlighted parallel sides, where you had actually written it on. Color code parallel sides opposite, color coding parallel sides over and over again. And so, here, find parallel sides. When you did the lesson, it looked to me, as we looked at the different color coding, it looked like you were doing almost a matching with the colors. Mm-hmm. Can you sort of explain that to me, how are you using 4 colors?
So, they're trying to find the missing side.
Mm-hmm.
So, we talked about this shape being a rectangle.
Mm-hmm.
So they know that if this side measures 6, then this side also has to measure 6. So that's why I keep repeating parallel sides, and why I keep bringing up the lesson from geometry that talks about rectangles having 2 sets of parallel sides. And then in the class we also talk about how those sets are parallel, so that means that the sides are equal. So when I do the color coding, it's almost to match the sites that they're looking for in the information that they already know. So, did I answer your question?
So you're saying if this is 6, then that's 6.
Mm-hmm.
So when they do that matching, and we came around, it seemed to be the one error that you were noticing and we were noticing in the question was, I think down here it was 3 and that was 2. But the kids were putting 5 up here. It was 5 here. Mm-hmm. So with the different colors, how are they still coming up with 5 at the top?
So we're talking about how in the original polygon, not what we color coded, the measurement of the whole line is 5, mm-hmm. but we're breaking it apart into different, using the colors to visually see what each side matches to. So we go back to, okay, now we're imagining the colors are not there. What do we originally have? We only have one long line. Mm-hmm. So then some of them are, now able to say, we know that we have 2 measurements, but we really have one line. So that makes the total of 12 or whatever they're giving us.
Okay. One of the things that, as I was watching the kids do that, I wondered if it might be easier. Our 4th grade team did this indicator at the beginning of the year, and they normed around a process where they're using just 2 colors, and that helps them identify the different sides by marking all of them parallel, and then marking, your in a sense, your horizontal lines and your vertical lines. One of the ways that we did that with our scholars was by extending this and giving mm-hmm. them that visual representation in their brain, so that they know that 5 feet here is 5 feet there, and it's parallel, and keep mm-hmm. going back to those parallel lines rather than matching lines.
Okay.
Do you think that would make any difference with your scholars?
Yeah, because keeping up with all the colors sometimes confuses them. So I think some of them it's clicking a little more, but I still have those that are like, oh, I messed up. And once you mess up, it's kind of hard to really see how you can go back and fix it. So maybe if it's 2 colors, it'll be.
Two colors would make it easy. It'd be even easier if everybody had the same 2 colors, but I know sometimes that can be difficult to come up with. Do you think your kids visually are able to see that would continue, so it sort of not only is parallel, but it does pick up the feeling that you were talking about earlier of it matching? But we want to stick with the parallel piece.
Yeah, I think if they're able to see, because we saw in one of the assignments the dotted line, and I told them that that's just like an imaginary line. So I think it'll be maybe a simpler way for them to be able to do it, because I know I'm definitely thinking, I'm like, okay, how can I make this simpler? But when I marked up my lesson, it made sense to me, but now that I'm actually doing it, it's like, okay, one color, pick a different color, pick a different color. So I definitely do feel like I have to find another way to show it to them that might be simpler.
So what we talked about as we were putting together this coaching reflection was to have you put together at least one check for understanding in the lesson that would be aligned to the indicator. So, for instance, you had, let's see here in my notes. Yours were about finding the unknown signs of the perimeter with polygons. And so you've talked about parallel lines as you were giving your information, and then you noted it all over. I think having something in your check for understanding that came back to, and you would ask the kids as they went around, did you find the parallel lines? Did you find the parallel lines? I think this would be a little bit simpler. And so for each of your problems of the day, come up with one check for understanding question that you're going to ask. And if you get to where you have less than 2/3 of your kids get that, just stop and do a reteach at that point.
Okay.
And we really feel like that will help get you to the point where you're able to identify the misconception, not necessarily the error, but the mistake that the kids are making earlier on.
Okay.
Does
Rather
that sound?
than letting it kind of just go on.
Then letting it go on, because one kid went up there and she was tracing the perimeter. She had a misconception of the whole thing. And then one of your kids talked about, well, you don't put a fence through the middle of your yard. So they understood not breaking up the inside, which is great as it leads you up to area and as the kids have more difficult shapes to do. Let's see, what else did we have on here?
I'm thinking as I'm looking at my lesson today, what I should really be doing is having them break them up into common shapes, common quadrilaterals that they can find. Like here, if they draw a line here, an imaginary line, so I guess it should be dotted, they would know that this is 3 and this parallel side is 3. So now this is a rectangle, and they should know that this rectangle has 2 sets of parallel sides. So
what you want them to know is 3 is 3 is 3.
Right. And I guess I need to make sure that they know what 2 shapes make up this irregular shape. And once they identify those, then it'll be easier for them to just use 2 colors. Because this is technically what is going on here. This is one big rectangle. But it becomes irregular because we do this here. And if we are looking at this, we can see that this is a square, right?
This would have been a square.
Yeah, because this is 5 5, and 3. So if this is 3, this is 3, this is 3. So they can approach it in different ways. I do have one scholar who is doing this, and that's Anissa. So I think it'll be more clear to them to, see the two quadrilaterals rather than just matching the sides.
You just have to make sure they don't figure in the perimeter on the inside
and we talked
piece.
about that's why they said the fence. Like for perimeter, we do around a shape, not put a fence right in the middle.
So I'll stop back in a couple times over the next couple weeks just to see how the questioning is going. If there's something between now and then that you've got a question about, definitely come and grab me. Or if you have taught a lesson and then you're like, I wonder what that really looked like, we can pull it up on our video too.
Okay.
And that way you can just come in and watch it if it's something that you want to see. How did that go over, or how did that sound, or did that make sense?
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Alrighty. Thank you.